talking about being overwhelmed a bit too. What are you thinking as a mom?
As a mom, hoping that what we tell our children they take, not only with the emotion that we give it and the love that we give it. We don't want to scare our children, but looking at that, you see how easily they're swayed. One thing I will say, as soon as I came back to get Tiffany, she knew something happened. They have to go with their instinct. She felt she was threatened, but yet she put herself in that spot by getting out of the chair. She wouldn't go out the door, but she was close enough that someone could have grabbed her out the door.
Did you kids learn anything through that tough test? Because we put you to the test to see what you would do. What did you learn?
I learned not to go with a stranger.
Yeah.
Because it costs you your life.
It sure could. Did you ever dream your mommy would be that upset?
Yes.
You did? But you're going to know never. I bet you one thing. These kids will never do that again.
And Rolonda, she actually, I remember this young lady. She did come out of the store with me, and when she did come out, she said, I can't go any further. She says, my mom won't allow me to. So her alarm went off a little too late. It did go off, and she must have felt she was in a harmful situation, but it went off a little bit too late for our comfort.
You know, what could they have done in that situation is maybe she could have got up and went to the pizza guy who just sold her the pizza and said, sir, I don't know this person. My mom, my dad just walked out. You know, can you help me? I don't know who this person is. At least it's someone who's working there. It's someone that is available for her to go to for help. It moves her further away from the door, and it's going to probably scare off that person who's trying to lure this
because you brought another adult involved in this situation.
Absolutely, and that's the last thing that abductor wants. I mean, the biggest thing they want to do, if it's someone out on the street, is they want to get the person to a secluded place. So one of the things that we tell the children, and one of the things that I'm going to tell the children that are here today, whether you're playing in front of your house, whether it's walking around the corner, you don't want to run into someone's backyard or into a wooded area where there's no one around. Now if that person gets you, your screams are going to go unanswered, and you're not going to find that help. You run into a store, you run into a post office, the fire department, whatever, wherever there's a lot of people, and ask someone, the store owner, a cashier, ask that person, there's someone that's following me that I don't know, can you call 911, can you get me some help? And this way, it brings them there where there's more people rather than none.
Sure.
I'd like to back this up a little bit because parents, I think it's important to remember, I'm a child psychologist, and I know that the best thing we can do to help prevent these kinds of things from happening to our children is to foster good self-esteem. Children that feel good about themselves are more likely to protect themselves and not get into these situations in the first place.
That is the #1 weapon, Rolonda, that you can arm your child with, but it's real important that the child also understand that it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It is never their fault. They should listen. They should always check first with the person in charge. What we say, use the buddy system as you flashed up earlier, and say no, go and tell. Adults don't need kids' help. If someone asks your help, you check with the adult in charge of you.
Peter Banks, thanks so much for joining us from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Thank you very much for being with us.
We teach our children to be respectful and polite to adults. So that's something that has to be addressed in our homes also, that you have to draw a line as to how respectful and polite do you want your child to be. And it was evidenced yesterday that all these children were being polite to me and respectful to me. And sometimes children don't realize that they can say no, and some of the responses could be, no, I can't help you, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to. My mother won't let me. And most caring adults will say, oh, that's right, I shouldn't be talking to this child, they shouldn't talk to
All
strangers.
these parents, though, did say that we have told our children, we say don't go out, but I didn't know it didn't sink in. So what are you supposed to say where it sticks, that they really get it?
You reinforce it on a continual basis so that it becomes part of the fabric of their lives, and you do it in an empowering way. You don't say that if you don't do this, bad things will happen. You say these are the things you do to ensure that you grow up safely. And we have to also very seriously reconsider this whole concept of strangers. As Officer Goodstein just said, you can go to the pizza clerk or you can go to the store clerk. Well, these people are strangers just as well. Aren't they? They're just as much a stranger as the person that's trying to lure them out. So I think what we have to understand is that sometimes it is good to go to people and ask for help if you don't know those people. And you can go to a police officer, you can go to a store clerk, you can go to a mom. And on the other hand, you should never go anywhere or do anything with any adult without your parents' permission first.
So what I hear you saying is it's not just enough to say, kids, don't do this, but if something happens, here's the drill. This is what you do.
Practice role play, because kids don't have the cognitive capacity when they're in an emergency to remember everything. We lose some of that. So if you keep role playing, you keep driving it home, convey in your voice that you're confident that they can do this, kids pick up on that.
Let me bring in another guest that we have. Joining us via satellite right now from the studios of America's Most Wanted in Washington, D.C. is John Walsh. John, you've been listening to this conversation. Some startled parents here. Some of us who aren't parents are rather startled, concerned about our kids and the safety. You have had some successful cases there. What do you say after listening this past hour?
Well, I think a lot of the comments are right on. I know Mark Klass and what he's trying to do, and think the world and respect his efforts in trying to deal with his daughter's murder. But the bottom line is, in my own personal experience here on America's Most Wanted, we've profiled 240 missing children, stranger abducted children, in the last 2.5 years. Now, the good news is 11 of them were gotten back alive. The bad news is that 95 of them were found murdered, and the rest of them are still missing. I think we don't need to make our kids scared or paranoid. I believe that knowledge is power, but I think we're overlooking one thing. To put the burden of protecting our children upon themselves is wrong. 95 of those kids didn't have a chance, no matter if they knew every safety program, if they knew all the rules of protection. As a society, we're not putting away and keeping away the people who hurt children.
I know that you have a personal story that makes this fight that much more important to you.
Absolutely. I mean, 14 years ago, our 6-year-old son, our only child, Adam, was with his mother in a shopping center in a store, and he was kidnapped, and 2 weeks later found murdered, and his murder hasn't been caught. And for 14 years, I've been traveling around this country trying to change laws on the federal level and state level and battle these problems. And I've learned one thing: knowledge, child safety programs, awareness, that's fantastic. But I also know one thing, that there's 2 pedophiles that will never hurt another child. One is Ted Bundy, who kidnapped young girls and adult women, and John Wayne Gacy, who killed 27 boys. They're never going to get out of prison. They're never going to hurt another child because they're both dead. They were both executed. And I've learned that that's one deterrent. When people who say the death penalty is not a deterrent, it may not deter another pedophile or a child molester from hurting any other child. But I know one thing. I've done 5 guys that should have paid the ultimate price that got out of jail and killed again. The death penalty for child killers is a deterrent.
And we'll be right back in a minute.